This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like needing the protection of an offensive guard on the football field, but getting an elementary school crossing guard. Sure, they're both guards, but you can only trust one to keep your quarterback safe when the game is on the line. So don't settle for just any insurance when there's State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is presented by Tully, the perfect tool for high school and Division III programs. Tully helps coaches track player readiness, performance, and development all in one simple platform. Instead of guessing where your athletes stand, you'll know who's ready, who needs attention, and how your team is trending week to week. With Tully, you get the confidence that your players will stay strong and prepared deep into the season without adding more work to your staff. Learn more today at tully.app or click the link in the show notes.
I'm about 30 years in on this coaching thing. I really have a Frankenstein-type offense, and I've been so fortunate to have landed in places that have molded me. The accountability sometimes of growth is not pleasant, and it's taken me to a point of being the best version of myself.
We're going to rep those plays in practice, those problem plays, so that we know what we're going to get and know how we're going to fit it and how we're going to stop it. That's kind of how we have adapted. Hopefully, we had 7 all-conference guys, 5 on defense.
I'd like to really be transparent about this because, man, if we can get ball coaches together to talk about this stuff and really be transparent about who we are and the securities we have as a leader and the insecurities that we have, then we're going to find out what fits and what doesn't fit. And you got to take the bullet for the college and for your team.
Welcome to the Hansen Ratings D3 Coach and Coordinators of the Week, presented by Tully, the performance and accountability app built by former Harvard football players to help teams stay connected, organized, and performing at their best. We've officially wrapped up the regular season, and with round 1 of the playoffs underway, this becomes our final week award show of the year. Today, we're recognizing the coordinators and head coaches whose programs closed the season with momentum and elevated their play when it mattered most. Logan Hansen, the creator of Hansen Ratings, joins me now. Logan, let's start on the offensive side. Who delivered the standout offensive performance to close out the regular season?
This week, that goes to Stephen Lee of Mary Hardin-Baylor, who defeated Howard Payne 65-9. This was easily Mary Hardin-Baylor's best offensive output of the season. They knew that they were a long shot to make the playoffs, but they still went out and performed at their best when it didn't really matter, but they wanted to leave the season on a high note, and they definitely did that. They had over 250 yards on the ground and over 250 yards through the air. They scored on 8 of their first 9 possessions and had 9 total touchdowns on the game. They averaged 8 yards per play, and the biggest difference maker in this game was that they just played a clean game. They didn't make mistakes. They didn't shoot themselves in the foot. They had no interceptions. They had no fumbles. They only had 1 penalty on offense, and that was a delay of game so that they could set up a better punt position on one of their 2 punts on the game. And they only allowed 1 sack. And just for a little bit of icing on the cake, they also had their wide receiver, B.J. Stewart, return a kickoff for a nice 56 yards to set up an easy score. So it was an all-around great performance from the offense and, going out on a high note and building some momentum going into 2026 for the crew.
That's a strong way to finish the year on offense, that is for sure. We open this week on the offensive side of the ball, where Mary Hardin-Baylor continued its dominance with a 65-9 win over Howard Payne. Obviously, a program that has had great success over the years. Stephen Lee, the offensive coordinator, is with us. And we're going to talk a little bit about his topic here in a minute. But Steve, we obviously want to congratulate you and welcome you to the show, and happy to recognize you and your offense and what you guys have been able to accomplish at Mary Hardin-Baylor. We give you a chance to, again, give some props to your offense. And then I'll prompt you into sharing a little bit about your offensive story and your concept of recipe for offense.
First of all, I'd like to just thank our administration and the coaches and people here at Mary Hardin-Baylor. It's a blessing to be here. It's amazing how God leads you, John, and where he puts you. This is an unbelievable place, and I'm so fortunate to be here. Again, I'd like to thank these men, the hours, the wives, the families that allow us to do this. I think it's so special. And again, maybe just thank the men who have allowed me to grow and learn from them and be on this show. It is an honor, and thank you so much for the honor.
Well, again, we appreciate you being with us. As we talked earlier, we asked you to share a thought with our listeners. And again, you talked a little bit about your recipe for offense and how you've kind of taken things from the different places and different coaches that you've worked with. How about you share a little bit of that with our listeners, Steve?
I'm about 30 years in on this coaching thing, John. I really have a Frankenstein-type offense, and I've been so fortunate to have landed in places that have molded me, men that have molded me, and been such an important part of my life. But I've went from high football back in the Texas high school days at small high school with some really good coaches. I've been at Division III with a man named Vance Gibson and Phil Fuller, who are unbelievable men. A man named Don Cartho at WT molded me, and his son, Colby. And then I ended up at Mary Hardin-Baylor with a man named Pete Fredenberg, who was an unbelievable influence on my life. And so they all pushed me and molded me. I told you earlier, the accountability sometimes of growth is not pleasant, but it takes you and makes you the best version of yourself sometimes. I had to realize as a young coach, sometimes it's not always personal. And it's taken me to a point of being the best version of myself. And that was difficult at times. But I'm so thankful for the men in my life. We were at West Texas A&M at a time when Lubbock and Mike Leach were influential in air raid football. And so I was fortunate to learn that. Didn't know anything about it. And I learned it and then came to Mary Hardin-Baylor and I was asked to study RPO. I call it PRO. We're pass run, but I was pushed to study that. Art Briles, Baylor, some of those things they were doing. And so we're all good thieves in offense, if you're those things, or we're all thieves, maybe I should say. And so I've taken what I've had. I've some good coaches in my room that I'm so fortunate to have either in the past or now, and just adapted this offensive style that we have. And it has taken what the defense gives and has certainly had some production.
Stephen, would you say that, we talk about balance, we talk about being 50-50 in terms of your philosophy, your belief, and what has been successful for you? Are you a believer in balance, or is it, I'm going to throw the ball first? Give us a sense for your thoughts on that.
Well, I'm an ex-college quarterback. I had a son who was a college quarterback. I love throwing the football. What I have learned and was actually taught and then learned is to play bracket championship football. You do need some balance, and you have to be able to run the football. And literally, though, mean it taking what the defense gives. If this makes sense, John, we've jumped back and forth year to year saying, okay, if this makes sense, do you take the tag off? It's often funny, we joke about it, but when you're on the headsets and you call a play that is an RPO, PRO, and you hear the O-line coach sometimes in the back say, oh, you know that the O-line coach saw the run could have gashed, but you pulled it and you threw the ball. But we joke about that often, but we literally are built on tagging it with the option of, in theory, there's a perfect play in there. We have to be good teachers in finding the run or the pass, and we're built that way. So it's always on. I guess you could say, yeah, the balance is there, but we don't go back and chart the balance of, hey, how many times did we run it or throw it? We go back and we do chart the success of the play and maybe why we were successful or we weren't successful.
You brought up a great point about in Division III, essentially to play for a championship, you're placed in a bracket where you may have to travel north. You may have to travel to places that you typically aren't playing. So essentially, you've got to be able to play offensive football in every part of the country because you never know where you're going to end up if you're in the tournament. So again, I think that's a great point, Stephen. So when you're unfortunately sometimes stuck having to travel north in the playoffs, you've got to be able to run the ball because you might be running into a snowstorm, right? So
no doubt.
Talk a little bit about your thoughts on that.
I've been through that. I think I might have shared with you. We were up at one time, going up north, playing Grand Valley. I had no idea. I think they call it a lakefront snow or something, came in second half. And man, we'd done a great job throwing the ball first half. And We ended up losing that game, and it helped me develop that identity of, you have to have a balance and a way to run the football. And then molding it into this thought of, when we make halftime adjustments and when we look at things, it's did we get it to the one-on-one? Whether it's 5-on-5 up front or 6-on-6 or 7-on-7 up front, did we get it to the one-on-one? And if we did, why did the one-on-one fail? And so we develop everything about defeating one-on-ones and molding our scheme into getting it to one-on-ones. With that though, John, you got to recruit right. You better have the guys in place that can win one-on-ones.
Well, you guys have done a phenomenal job of getting guys that can win one-on-ones. You've done a phenomenal job as a program. And I knew that you had been there and left and came back. And it's a tribute to the place and the people that you get to work with, Stephen. We have great respect for Pete Fredenberg. And obviously, Larry's doing a heck of a job taking over for a legend. But you guys do an incredible job as a program. And offensively, I've always been impressed with what you've done there. And we appreciate you being on.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. It's an honor. Thank you for your time.
Coaches, we all know the struggle with keeping players at their best over the course of a long season. You're trying to track readiness, monitor performance, and manage development, but most of the time it's scattered between paper check-ins, text messages, or spreadsheets that take hours to manage. That's where Tully comes in. Tully brings everything into one simple platform designed for high school and Division III programs. With quick athlete check-ins, you get real-time insight into player readiness, workload, and performance trends. That means fewer surprises, healthier players, and better decisions on practice and game day. If you want your team stronger, more durable, and more confident late in the season than they were in Week 1, Tully is the tool you need. Learn more at tully.app or click the link in the show notes.
Let's move over to the defensive side of the ball, where one unit stepped up with a finisher mindset and shut down a tough opponent. Logan, who earned your Defensive Coordinator of the Week honors, and what stood out in that performance?
This week, that goes to Adam Weber of Carthage, who won a really great defensive game on both sides of the field, a 7-3 ball game against Carroll. And Carthage held Carroll to 203 total yards, and 81 of those yards came on the one Carroll scoring drive of the game. Outside of that one drive, Carroll's offense only averaged 14 yards per drive and under 3 yards per play. And Carthage really dominated in key downs. On third and fourth downs, they allowed under a 25% conversion rate. They also forced 2 turnovers, a fumble, and an interception. And they also held Carroll's best player, who was an All-American tight end / do everything back. He threw the ball, he ran the ball, Reed Breckheimer. That guy only had 41 total yards on 10 touches. So Carthage was able to shut down Carroll's best player, and they were able to shut down the entire team and go out on a high note and hold Carroll to 3 points when anything more than that was not going to win the game when your offense only has 7 on the board. So really complimentary football from Carthage there, and congrats to Coach Weber.
A dominant defensive effort to close the season. Certainly an impressive way to end their year.
The Who's Down in Who Newville were making their list, but some didn't know Walmart has the best brands for their gifts.
What about toys? Do they have brands kids have been wanting all year?
Yep, Barbie, Tony's, and Lego. Gifts that will make them all cheer.
Do you mean they have all the brands I adore?
They have Nintendo, Nespresso, Apple, and more.
What about...
So the Who answered questions from friends till they were blue. Each one listened and shouted, from Walmart? Who knew? Shop gifts from top brands for everyone on your list in the Walmart app.
Next up is our Defensive Coordinator of the Week, Adam Weber from Carthage, where they finished with a great win to end the season. Adam, congratulations on the win and for being recognized by Logan and Keith. We're awful excited to have you. And again, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, John. It's a pleasure to be here.
As we've discussed, we talked about, and we've had all of our coaches share a coaching topic or a coaching thought, coaching idea with our listeners. And I'm sure you have something good to share as well. You talked about adapting your scheme to your personnel. So let's talk about that a little bit and share that with our listeners, Adam.
For me, when I got to Carthage 2 years ago, we were a quarters, 4-down team. That's kind of was around most of my career as a young coach, and got here and tried to instill that into our players. And it just wasn't clicking for them for some reason. So last year, about the 5th game of the year, we ended up changing the whole scheme and really trying to get our players to play fast and physical. People talk all the time about players, not plays, or, simpler is better. And it's all good in theory until you get that situation where, you're trying to get the best out of your players. We were a 4-down quarters team. We came in and it wasn't clicking for our guys. So we had some connections with some other college coaches and just trying to get more simpler. And we got into this bare front kind of run with motion and then get into cover 2. And that worked for us last year. And then coming into this year, going into spring ball, we did the same type of thing. We added some tweaks where we weren't going to always run. We were going to spin with the motions and then pop out into cover 2 sometimes. And the first 3 weeks of the year this year, for some reason, it just didn't click with our guys. So we ended up adapting again into a 3-high safety look with 4 down. And, we played really fast. We let our defensive line really have some line games and stuff and movement to kind of make things difficult for the offensive line, but make it simpler and make our guys play fast. It worked out great for us. I mean, we had some really good guys up front. I think the one thing that allowed us, you get into weeks of game planning. And you're like, what do they do against us? What do they do? And by the last 3 weeks of the year, it wasn't a whole lot of like, we need to do this, we need to do that. Hey, we know what we're going to run. This is what we're going to run. And how are they going to attack us? And then getting into the practice and knowing, hey, they're going to run stretch to the field against us. So let's get as many reps against that as we can. So our guys know, hey, this is how we're going to fit it. This is how we're in coverage. And so that's kind of how we adapted. 6 quarters, we gave up 9 points. Last week we had a tough game against Carroll. Gave up 3 in the whole game, and I probably called 3 different calls that whole game. But it allowed our guys, they knew where they were supposed to be. They knew how to fit the run. They knew where they had in pass coverage. And we had seen the routes that we were going to get hit. We seen the runs that we were going to get. And it allowed our guys to know where to be on those certain plays and to play fast and to play physical. So it really was a great thing for us to kind of just, hey, we're going to be more simple. So our guys know what they're doing. We're going to rep those plays in practice, those problem plays, so that we know what we're going to get and know how we're going to fit it and how we're going to stop it. So that's kind of how we have adapted. Hopefully, we had 7 all-conference guys, 5 on defense. Hopefully, those guys will get more comfortable in this style and we won't have to change again, and this is what we know and how we're going to do things. So
tell me, Adam, as young coaches, we always seem to think that the more is better. We've got to have all these different coverages and fronts. And if I'm understanding you correctly, you have kind of come to the realization that that's not always the best thing. Maybe we need to simplify, do less, and we're going to be more successful. The old saying, less is more, it seems to be applying to what you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. That's 100% correct. And it's one thing to say that, but it really takes a lot to sit in the mirror and say, hey, this is not comfortable for me to move on for what I've known for so long and what I've done. Because if it's a quarters 4-down defense and some pressures off of it, me and Coach Papino, we know the problems. We know how to fix them. And then putting yourself in a situation where you're not as comfortable with the scheme, but your players are playing faster, they're playing more physical, they understand it better. That is a big thing. And I think it's all about the players. I'm a really good coach when I got really good players. When I got Michael Sneed and Jermo Rowlett playing for me, I'm a better football coach. When I got, Marion Talamez playing for me at safety as a freshman, I'm a better football coach, And if those guys don't understand what I'm trying to coach them, I got to change how I'm coaching them, or make them understand what we're trying to do. So I think, and for me, I think simpler is better at times, and it's paid off for us. They play with confidence. And when you have confident players playing, you can be successful, So a great coach told me one time, a confused player makes a coward of us all, right? Confusion makes cowards of us all. So try not to let them be confused and let them play fast and physical. That's what it's all about.
Well, there's no question that clarity of purpose allows them to play fast, allows them to play with confidence. As you said, if they're confused, then they're not playing fast and they're not playing confident. So clarity of purpose is critical. And it sounds like, again, you guys have come to that point and realization of the value in that for your players.
For sure. No doubt. 100%.
I'd be remiss if we didn't give you a chance to give some props to your defensive staff, Adam. So take a second to do that if you want.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm so grateful for my staff. They work really hard. Will Flaherty, our graduate assistant, and that guy has done so much this past year to get us prepared. I mean, he's staying up 2 o'clock in the morning trying to find tendencies for us. Jose Ramirez, who's a part-time guy who came in, who played at Carthage, He was a high school state champion defensive coordinator, came in this year, and he's really helped us with the defensive line, who was probably our strong point of this year. Connor Gibson, our strength coach and our linebacker coach, an unbelievable guy, unbelievable strength coach, and really bought into, what it was to be a linebacker coach, a wide receiver in Hanover College, and then coaching linebacker and our strength coach. And then Zach Cadorsey, who helped us out this past year. He played at Endicott last year and kind of just played for Coach Papino. And then I wouldn't be here without Coach Papino. I mean, he brought me in here, and he's our head coach. He's our leader. He helps on the defense probably more than he needs to, but he loves football, he loves coaching, and he loves coaching defense. So really, those guys, I couldn't do it without them. They help me out so much day in and day out. I really owe them a lot. So I would be remiss if I didn't say anything great about those guys. They really helped me a lot.
Well, we appreciate that. And again, we appreciate your time, appreciate you being on with us, Adam. We obviously wish you the best in the off season, and hopefully we'll have a chance maybe to have you back on next year as well.
That would be awesome. Thank you guys so much. It's such an honor to be able to talk to you guys a little bit, and I'm grateful for what you guys do for Division III football.
And now we finish with our head coach of the week, someone whose team delivered a complete performance and ended the season on a great note.
That goes to DeMarco of Geneva this week. They beat Case Western Reserve 43-16. Geneva this year had one of their best seasons ever. They finished the year third in the President's Athletic Conference, which is their best ever finish in the PAC. And before Saturday, Geneva had never beaten Case Western as PAC opponents, and that has been for 10 years. And they defeated them with gusto on Saturday. The offense put up nearly 400 yards. Their quarterback had 200 yards passing. They had a 100-yard rusher, and they had two different receivers with over 75 receiving yards. They also, like I mentioned with Mary Hardin-Baylor, they just played clean ball. They had very few tackles for loss allowed, and none of them were for more than 2 yards. They had no fumbles, no interceptions, only allowed 2 QB hits, and only 2 pass breakups. So the offense played clean ball and had some explosive plays where they needed it. On the defensive side, the defense was creating havoc all over the field. They had 6 sacks for 36 yards, 8 tackles for loss for 41 yards, 2 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries, 8 pass breakups, and an interception returned 98 yards to the house for a score. So all around great game for Geneva. Went out in the regular season on a high note, and they got the honor of playing in one of the ECAC Bowls coming up this weekend. So congrats to Coach, finishing the regular season on a high note and leading into what should be a pretty competitive game this weekend as well.
A tremendous way to cap the regular season. Let's head to Geneva, Pennsylvania to meet with our head coach of the week, Geno DeMarco from Geneva College. Geno ended the season with a big win, 45-16 over Case Western Reserve. Geno, congrats on a great win, an incredible career, and for being recognized by Logan and Keith as our head coach of the week. We want to give you an opportunity to, again, give some props to your staff and recognize them for a couple seconds here.
Well, Coach, thank you. Before I give props to them, I'd like to give props to both of you and to all of you for doing such a great job in being able to help coaches in our industry. That's what separates football from other industries, is when we have ideas, we share them, we don't hoard them. It's just, in business, that's just a foreign concept. But I will tell you that putting this staff together, continuity wins. I think we've seen that over the years. If you look at Coach Tressel and how things happened at BW over the years as far as continuity, any coach will say that, and trying to keep these guys. So what I did is I've got a defensive coordinator, Tom Quintana, who did an amazing and who's doing an amazing job preparing our guys. And I know some coaches always say this just to make things look right, but we're really concerned about the experience that we had in the secondary. And early on, people were just lighten us up. He's done a great job with the defense. Him and Dom Henderson, who is a guy that both of these guys played here, so they understand the culture. I have to give props to Linwood Alford, and he has coached here before. He had a great career at Syracuse, and is Aliquippa guy. It just brings so much enthusiasm to that side of the ball. And then lastly, on the defensive side, John McCullough, our defensive line coach, who was an incredible player in D2 and helps with our strength program. They're just ball coaches. They really are. So on the offensive side, our receiver coach has been with me for probably 25 years. Keith Humphreys played at Louisville and was an Aliquippa product, and he's done an exceptional job over the decades of producing All-American receivers. Even when we were going through the triple option years, he was there. I brought back Jason Morgo, gave him the title as offensive coordinator as something that we would build together. And where I saw Jason fitting in because he played here, he was with us before when we ran a lot of this air raid stuff, was just tempo. He was used to coaching practice with tempo in mind, and I needed to have that in place. So he's done an amazing job in preparing the guys for the speed at which we have to practice and being able to learn some protections. I mean, coming out of running triple and going straight into going air raid, whatever you want to call this, it was a monumental task. We got a young guy, Will Bensing, who's our O-line coach as well. Just an outstanding young coach and a graduate assistant that we got from Coastal Carolina that came in. I'll tell you what, Coach, I get these young guys, man, and I just pick their brains, and they've got some great ideas, and we try to put some stuff together with what we've done in the past, and then before you know it, this isn't a me thing, it's an us thing.
Geno, you're one of the legends in our profession, the guy that's been obviously able to stay at one place and establish a program and a career. And you've obviously gone through many people in terms of a staff. And we talk about sharing something with our listeners. And you talked about preparing a staff. So again, somebody with your history and experience, if anyone knows how to prepare a staff, it's you. So again, how about you share with our listeners for a few minutes your thoughts on preparing a staff?
Well, I think preparing the staff comes from your overall vision of what you want to do. And every coach has a different pathway. I was fortunate, very fortunate. My first 2 jobs were with Hall of Fame coaches who taught me how to coach ball. And that was Bill Curry at Georgia Tech, who did more from a standpoint of why football is important. And then being with Don Nealon at West Virginia, where I actually understood what we needed to do in coaching football. So those 2 things really help you when you're a young guy. And it's very difficult, finding the young guys, they want to get a chance, they want to be able to do it. I think the biggest thing is looking for a staff is what is the mission of what you want to do? What are the objectives you're putting down? Short-term goals that are easily understood and that you can measure. All these things we learn at different clinics, and it's no different than running a company. But your imprint as a head coach is going to be defined about how they view you and what they see you doing as a servant. If you can't serve, if you can't do things for your staff, if you can't model those things, people will not follow you. I mean, they'll respect you for a short time, but they will not follow you. So it's kind of like going the second mile. And a lot of what we do and a lot of what we've done over the years, and I got to say this, Coach, I have studied earning an MBA and having an MBA and all this. I've studied different things in areas of psychology and info systems, but I can't turn my computer on. That info systems degree was in 1983. I mean, what's it worth now? But the reason I say it is just to try to impress people. And then, I got the MBA from West Virginia, and I spent 7 years in a Fortune 100 company. And the reason I did is, the money was great, but I also was able to be a volunteer to give back. So when you put a staff together, first thing you do is you learn from experience of the people that you worked for before. And you take and you look and you say, okay, what are the things that I learned from all of these men, these great men? And even in situations like, playing college ball and playing for Coach Gene Sullivan, who was an actual legend, I could never fill his shoes here. He cast such a huge shadow, an excellent shadow. It's just very difficult. And learning from the various stops I had, like being at Baldwin Wallace and seeing the interaction of that staff and that legacy that has remained there for so long. So you put a staff together and you base it on different things. What's your objective? What's the goal? And I know there are young guys out there that want to get in and use D3 or use their first stop to be able to grow. Coach Nealon taught me this. He goes, guys who look for the next job usually lose the one they have currently. And I just believe when we came to Geneva and came back to do this, I took a huge pay cut to do it, but it was a calling, it was a mission, it was more than just football. It was about investing into the lives of players and young men. So if you have a purpose in your mission and you can make it about the players as a person and not just a 5 technique, who can come off the edge, or a 3 technique who can gobble up a double team, or being able to get a quarterback that can check 3 times. And look at these young men as people. I hate saying that, but just flat out people. And I believe this recipe would even hold up in today's NIL thing at the Division I level, because what causes people to stay? Is it the money? Oh, obviously, yes. But what we've learned before is there's intrinsic factors of motivation to keep players and keep coaches at a place for a while. I think about the longevity, and you look at what was on that Baldwin Wallace staff at that time, when Larry Van Dusen being a defensive coordinator, and how long, and the excellence that he had. And I've been fortunate with this. I've had some continuity. In the years that we've been really, really bad is when the coaching staff was a revolving door. So it's really a blend between trying to understand what the needs are and what the wants are of the guys you're hiring. They have to fit. And they may be guys that want to say, Coach, I want to be here for 3 years and I want to go. And you got to hire those guys knowing that that's what's going to happen. I think the other thing is a really good leader will hire people that can do some things and do a lot of things better than what you can do, and not be like paranoid about it, because there is this paranoia that occurs in leadership, and especially with football coaches. I mean, we've seen it over the years. I've been in places where we were talking about the game plan in the 80s, and we couldn't throw the game plan away in a garbage can at the hotel the night before because, God forbid, somebody will come in and check the trash. I mean, where does this paranoia come from? Honestly, and I have it. I still have this. Wipe the board down. We don't want anybody to see it. I mean, we don't want anybody to see it. We're sharing everything. These are kind of some of the things. I'm talking too much. I'll shut up, and you guys just fire away, because I have done things the right way. And I can tell you, I have made some of the most miserable hires in the history of college football. Not because of them, or it might have been because of me. You think maybe once in a while the problem might have been me? Yeah, absolutely. Do we make bad hires? Yeah. I know you never did as a head coach. You never made a bad hire. Never. I did. I'd like to really be transparent about this, because, man, if we can get ball coaches together to talk about this stuff and really be transparent about who we are and the securities we have as a leader and the insecurities that we have, then we're going to find out what fits and what doesn't fit. And a leader is somebody going to take the bullet when everybody is saying, what's going on over there at Geneva? They can't win anymore. And you got to take the bullet for the college and for your team. I mean, you can't get up there and be the comedian that just says, well, they're all terrible and.
Well, we're all guilty, unfortunately, Geno, of making some poor decisions in terms of hiring. I think that's part of it. And if any head coach says they never did that or had that situation, I'm not sure if they're being honest. But if you were to say, in terms of hiring an assistant, the number one most important quality that assistant should have, what would you say it would be?
It's got to be loyalty. It has to be trust. And it's what's tough is because you got 3 things that you're looking for. You're looking for trust. You want trust from your players. You want your players to trust you. You got to have people that look to be in this mode of constant improvement, because that brings hope to a program. So you're looking for coaches that have that same kind of thing. And then the bottom line is, they got to care about somebody else other than themselves. Our players ask us the same questions. It's not really hard. It really isn't. If you can find someone with those 3 attributes and they have those and they bring an expertise, and I don't care if they're running 4 coverages on defense, it doesn't matter. We can go and get coached up and schooled up. We got that kind of thing going on from a character standpoint. We're going to have a good staff.
Yeah, we've always said we got to hire people of character, people with competence, and people who essentially can fit into the chemistry of the program. And if you hire those 3 things, then I think you're hiring quality people, Geno. And again, I'm sure you did plenty of that over the course of your career. Again, thank you for spending time with us. I'm being recognized as our head coach of the week, and we wish you the best.
This is really an honor to get this type of recognition from the place where I started, and it will always be a special place for me. Thanks, Coach. I appreciate this, really.
And that brings us to the close of our final Hansen Ratings D3 Coach and Coordinators of the Week Show of the Year. The weekly awards may wrap up here, but the intensity only increases. With the playoffs now underway, the stakes rise, the margins shrink, and every decision shapes a season. We'll continue to track the postseason, but today we celebrate the coaches who helped their teams finish the regular season the right way. Congratulations again to this week's recipients. And thanks to Tully for their support throughout the year. Logan, great work all season. Appreciate all your information and for hosting and providing the information on our recipients. And for everyone listening, enjoy the playoffs. The best football of the year is still ahead.
Yeah, you bet. It's been a fun year, John. Thanks for everything you did this year as well, not just on the podcast, but putting together a pretty clean bracket for the national tournament here. I know you've got more work to do as the playoffs go. I hope everybody listening to this finds a chance to either watch online one of these playoff games or bowl games coming up this week, or if you can, get out in person and watch some of these games. These are outstanding football. You know, the best teams in the country are still playing ball right now, and I can't wait to see who we crown as national champs in a few weeks.
Thank you for listening to Coaching Coordinator Network, Hansen Ratings D3 Coaching Coordinators of the Week show. Be sure to check out our presenting sponsor, Tully.app. Go to their website and see all the things that they are doing. Definitely something that can help you as a coach, whether you're at the high school level or the D3 level, in managing your athletes and their development.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here, wishing you a very happy half-off holiday, because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day, yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.